want Vivek to speak because Vivek is wonderful. I met him at Alternative Conference, and he's just an amazing soul. We're really here to kind of share the space together. And without further ado, wonderful Vivek with Meaningful Ideas.
Hi everybody, thanks very much. Thanks Stephanie for inviting me to talk today. I love the work that you're doing here.
Thank you.
My name is Vivek Patel and I'm a conscious parenting educator. So I teach philosophy of parenting where there's no punishment or consequences, and it's all based on relationship and communication. And when Stephanie was talking about intuitive facilitation and following the kids' intuition, I got really inspired because all throughout my daughter's life, one of my main focuses was on helping her develop her own relationship to her intuition. I say develop, it's not really develop, because when a newborn baby, my baby's like newborn, they're all intuition. You know, you look at that, they don't have the labels that we have, they don't have the identifications that we have, they just have this pure sense of what life is about. Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. You feel me, little one, I appreciate that. And that purity is still inside all of us, right? But it gets buried by layers and layers of pain and trauma and difficulty and stress and being told that we're wrong for years and years and years and years. And so focusing on intuition and relationship with self from the very beginning is a whole different way of looking at parenting than we're used to. By the way, the kids make noise. Don't worry about it. Let them make all the noise that they want. Unless you want to, like, I'm not telling you what to do. So the other day, like 2 or 3 days ago, my friend Zara, she's a yoga teacher and she does fertility work and she's a therapist. She called me and she was on the phone and she was in so much stress and agony. She was crying and she was upset and she's making some changes in her career right now. She didn't know exactly what she wants to do. And she was crying. She was saying, "Vivek, when I made these decisions before, I was following my mind, and I was afraid, and I was doing things for security, and not really following my heart. And I don't want to do that this time, Vivek." And she's crying, and she's weeping, and the tears are flowing. And she said, "What do I do? How do I know if I'm making the right decision?" And I said, "You can't. There's no way to know that you're making the right decision. All you can do is get as much information as you can." And then follow your heart. Listen to your heart and follow your heart. And we had like an hour conversation. She said, "You should talk about me when you do your workshop and tell everybody I was crying." So I have her permission, just so everybody knows. But like she could feel how her own childhood had robbed her of this. I shouldn't say robbed her, but diminished her own ability to tune in and to trust what she felt inside. You know, and I see that in myself. I've had to reclaim my relationship to my intuition over the years. My relationship to myself over the years, and I see that in so many people. Pretty much everybody that I know is doing that kind of work, of reclaiming their relationship to themselves that we lost when we were young. So I always thought when my kid was born, I thought, how can we do this in a way where they don't have to reclaim it, but from the very beginning, it's fostered, it's developed, it's nourished, so that it just becomes a natural part of life. And so this is what I want to talk about today. I'm very excited to talk about it. I want to talk a little bit about what intuition is. Okay, so some people think of intuition from like a spiritual perspective, for example, and I tend to think of it this way. It's like thinking of ourselves connected to the universal intelligence, or the divine selves, or our higher selves. One of those any of those ways we might put it, the interconnectedness of all beings. And then from that place, which is below, again, like we talked about before with babies who are connected already, before they have the labels, before they have the self-identification. When they have that connection, we have that inside of us too. And if we can access that part of ourselves and open up to the spiritual nature that we are, then all that information from this higher self comes in. The other way of looking at intuition is a scientific way, which I also like to look at it because I also have a very scientific mind. I kind of have both. The scientific way of looking at intuition is like our brains take in, and our senses take in all sorts of information from all over the place, more than we can possibly contain consciously. And our subconscious processes it, and then in different ways it gives us messages, right? It gives us messages in the feelings in our body. It gives us messages like subtle thoughts and feelings in our head. I call it a deep feeling sense, you know, beyond what we normally register as our senses. And also, Even sometimes it helps us, well, we say we see a sign. We see, oh, I saw 3 squirrels today, that must mean something. But the scientific-minded way of thinking of it is that your subconscious is communicating to you by what it points out to you, what it makes you notice. So a lot of the times we notice things intuitively, and it's our mind, our subconscious, showing us what we need to help us further along our path. So whether you think of it as the spirit... Do you have a question, little one, or are you stretching? All right. I wanted to make sure you didn't have a question. Yes, so whether you think of it as the spiritual way, or you think of it as the scientific way, or you combine both, which is kind of how I do it, intuition is really, really important. And decision-making is one of the most important areas that intuition is for. Intuition we can rely on. Because with decision-making is a very complex thing. We can take our list of pros and cons. But then after the list of pros and cons, we also have to pay attention to our values. And on top of our values, it's our life experience, our perceptions, our biases, our prejudices, our trauma, the things that have worked for us in the past, the things that haven't worked for us in the past. So we have all of these different aspects that we're putting together to make decisions. And throughout lives, we have to constantly make decisions. From whatever age you are, decision-making is always with us. And it's something that's not really taught a lot as kids. We're not taught about making decisions. Actually, we're taught, parents and adults usually tell us the decisions, what the decisions are that we should make, right? And then we don't end up having a chance to practice making our own decisions. And we don't have a chance to practice tuning in deeply to our inner self when we're making those decisions. Because sometimes, when we make our list of pros and cons, and sometimes when we have all the information, even if it's pointing clearly in one direction, our heart sometimes wants us to go in another direction. Right? Has anybody ever experienced that? Yeah, and sometimes when we follow that, even if it lands us in a lot of trouble, so when we look back on it, it's worth it, right? Because we took a risk and we did something that didn't make sense. And I know when I've done that in my life, sometimes it's worked out and sometimes it hasn't, but I always feel like, yeah, I trusted myself, I listened to myself, and I went in that direction, And I didn't want my kid to be cut off from that inner knowing, from that sense of herself. Because then when it came time to make a difficult decision, this whole aspect of tuning into our deeper knowing is gone, and we have to reclaim it. Another place that intuition is really useful is in self-defense. I'm a martial arts teacher, as well as teaching parenting. I teach martial arts, and in self-defense, for example, like something as simple as so before I did this workshop, was preparing for the workshop, I asked my daughter, "What do you think about intuition? What's important to you about intuition?" And she was saying, "Dad, imagine that you were like walking down the street one day, and all of a sudden you have this feeling to just stop, and you don't know why. And just as you stop and you hesitate a little bit, and just as you start to go, woof, a car goes right by. And if you hadn't hesitated, you would have been hurt, right? So many, and again, what's happening is all these different parts of, all this different information is being taken in by our consciousness. We don't process it all. It's too much for us to process. But if we listen in, it's giving us information all the time. And even so there's an idea of self-defense. The other day I was getting on the elevator with my mom and my sister, my mom in a wheelchair. And we're getting on the elevator, and this guy got in with us. And we just had this feeling in here, like, I don't think we should be on the elevator with this guy. So I said, you know what, we forgot to check the mail, let's get off the elevator. And I gave my sister a look, and she knew, and we got off the elevator, and all three of us were saying, oh, we all had a weird feeling about this guy, and we listened. But I'll tell you what, it took me years and years and years to get to the point where I listened to that again. All my perceptions were that when I was young. But then I got told, no, Vivek, that's not the way to do it. No, Vivek, don't eat like that. Don't talk like that. Don't run like that. Don't jump on that. Don't throw that. Oh, you broke that. That's not what you're supposed to do. All of these things, layers on layers on layers. And I couldn't even hear my own intuition anymore. I didn't trust it anymore. There's such a small slice of life that we can actually control. Most of life is out of our control. What happens to us, what other people do, how they react, what they say, the different systems that we interface with, like the financial system, the legal system, the education system, the government system, the correction system. And so we have all these systems, and we have and we have people that we can't control, and we have random events that come to our lives we can't control. There's very little we can control. But our relationship with ourselves, is something that we can control. Control meaning nurture, foster. I remember when I was really young. So I grew up in a very traditional household. I was spanked a lot. I was punished a lot. My dad was like, if you say one more word, I'm going to pull this car over, turning. And I can still see his face turning around from the car seat. You know, I can see it so clearly in my mind. And so I lived my whole childhood. I lived in fear of the next punishment, fear of the next spanking, fear of the next consequence, fear of the next time I was going to be told I wasn't good enough. You know. I remember, and so what happened was, and this happens to kids who grow up this way, because we set all these expectations for kids. How they should behave, like I said before, how they should talk, how they should think even. And what happens is, because kids want our acceptance, they want connection with us, they want harmony with us, they want relationship with us. Because of that, children start to modify their choices and their behaviors based on the expectations they imagine that we have of them that's going to allow them to be accepted. There's two main ways that kids react to these expectations that we hold of them. One is compliance and the other is resistance. And compliance and resistance are two sides of the same coin. Both of them terrifying. Because neither of them are authentic behavior. Neither of them are tuning into what's real and important and genuine. And then expressing that, and having real conversations, and real communication, and real problem solving, and real collaboration. When you have a relationship like that, everything changes, you know? But when the relationship is controlling behavior or modifying behavior and that kind of thing, it's so hard. It's hard for kids to relax. So they have to constantly be modifying who they are, how they react, and what they do, so that they're acceptable. I remember this story, just recently I remembered this story of when I was a kid and my parents, we went to the X. And the X is, everybody here knows, but for people who might watch the video, in other places, the X is a fairgrounds with rides and games and stuff. Hello, come on in. All right, and so we went to the X and we came back, and I have a younger sister, 3 years younger than me. And they had this little puppy dog and this big frog. And the frog was, you can still see the frog so clearly, it was green, black spots, and big white eyes, and yellow on the face. And we came to the door, and my parents, right in the foyer, my sister got off to play, right in the foyer, my parents said to me, Vivek, which of these two toys would you like? Would you like the little puppy dog, or would you like the big frog? Now it seems like a really nice thing for them to ask. They didn't ask my sister first, they gave me the choice first. Seems like a really nice thing, but they never gave me choices. So I had no context of how to handle that. I didn't know what to do. I was like, you're asking me? First of all, I was a little freaked out that they were asking me. So then I was like, I still can't believe my mind knew this at this age. I was probably 8, right? So then I was thinking, I really wanted that frog. In that moment when they asked me, I felt like I could cuddle the frog. It felt like it would be my friend. I really wanted this frog, right? But then I thought, but if I ask for the frog, are they going to think I'm greedy? Yeah, they probably think I'm greedy because I've been called that before, I'm sure. And then, but I really want the dog. I really want the frog. I told us the story of the frog and the dog, by the way, because I didn't want the dog. But I thought, well, if I tell them I want the dog, they'll think I'm really generous. And then they'll give me the frog because they'll see what a nice person I am. So I wanted them to see I was a nice person, and I wanted them to reward me for my generosity. This is what I thought, right? When you behave a certain way, you get rewarded. When you behave a different way, you get punished. And this is how I made my decision. I didn't know how to express my true desires. I did hardly know how to tune into them. And so I said, with my words, I said to my parents, I want the dog. And I actually added, and I'm not just saying that, I really want the dog. That's how completely opposite I went to my heart. To try and gain acceptability, to try and gain acceptance from these people that I look up to so much, you know. And of course they gave me the dog. And the frog went to my sister, and I was like, to this day, I'm like, I feel that frog inside me, you know? I feel so upset about that. I can still feel 8-year-old Vivek when I'm like, but at that point I was like, I don't know what to do now. How do I make decisions? How do I interact with people? I was like, okay, so clearly the only way I can interact with people is manipulate them. Because I didn't know how to be genuine. So this is one of the ways that we make it really difficult for kids to make decisions. It's because we place all these expectations on them. And then they have to create a mask, right? One of my sayings is parents are not mask designers. But a lot of the time we are. So this is about, the first thing that obstructs our relationship with our intuition that I mentioned is having to fit expectations of our parents and what happens with consequences if we don't. The other thing is being told directly that our instincts are wrong a lot of the time. One of the classic things that I hear, so one of the things that I do, I coach parents and I work with parents online a lot. And I'm also a moderator for and on the admin team for a large parenting group. It's called Gentle Parents Unite, and it has over 30,000 members. It's a lot of people on this group. And so for the last few years, I get to see a large sample size. If you want to pull out your phones and join it right now, you're welcome to, please. The group is called, I saw you read for it. The group is called Gentle Parents Unite, and my social media, by the way, is Meaningful Ideas. If you want to join me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and on the web, meaningfulideas.com. Feel free to join. I write almost all the time, and I put videos up. I'm going to put this video up too. Thank you. So one of the most common things I see is parents struggling with kids with their food, right? Little kids throwing food. And one of the traditional things parents say is, I see you're done with your food, I'm going to take it now. Because we don't throw food. And in that moment, when a child is throwing their food, especially little ones, right? There's this organic relationship to their food that they have. It's tactile, it's experiential, and the food flying through the air has this whole life experience to it. It's an embodied experience, and it's an instinctive thing. And when we tell them this is not how you behave, this is not how we behave, all of a sudden that instinct is like. We're being told that the very instinct that we have, our relationship with ourselves, is wrong. Because the people who are here to guide us are telling us it's wrong. So then how do we make it so that our kids feel like we really respect that? We really respect who they are. We really respect their relationship to themselves. It's challenging.
Now go some money.
I remember one day when I was like 8 or 9 years old, I was in the shower. Little Nick in the shower on his own. And all of a sudden my dad and 3 uncles bust into the bathroom. And I was like embarrassed, you know, I'm naked in the shower, I'm embarrassed. I didn't want them there. I wanted to be alone, I wanted my space. And I said, hey, get out, get out. I can still remember this again, I remember it so clearly. My dad said, it's all men, Vivek, it's all men. I didn't know what that meant, but I knew it meant that I was wrong. I was wrong for having this modesty. I was wrong for wanting my space with my body. I was wrong for wanting anything to do with my body, really. You know, my understanding of consent was broken then. My understanding of relationship and listening and honoring each other was broken then. And my relationship with myself was broken from that. You know, so many times we tell kids how things are, rather than discovering with them how things are. And these are not extreme stories either. You know, this is a lot of these kind of things are the traditional way kids are worked with, and it really damages the relationship itself. And then we spend so many of our years after that as adults reclaiming that relationship itself. You know, we go through so many mental health struggles, and then we go to therapy, and then we have all sorts of ways. We dance, or we talk to friends, you know, or we post articles on Facebook like I do to work out our stuff. And but imagine what I always thought. Imagine that we could help kids enter life without having to deal with them. Not that they're not going to experience a lot of pain in their life. Of course they will, just like we do. But it'll be a different pain. It won't be the pain of having to reclaim themselves as they get older. I want to talk a little bit about like what we can do that enhances. I talked a lot about what gets in the way of intuition. I want to talk about what enhances intuition as well. Alright, so one of the things that helps kids with their intuition and with their awareness of their surroundings is to have a really powerful and solid relationship with themselves. One of the things that I do with kids all the time is I point them back to themselves. When they want to look for an external source of authority or information, I point them back to themselves. What makes sense to you in this situation? What makes sense given what you want to do, the fun you want to have, and the danger that's possible, that's present? What makes sense? Always asking what makes sense. Because what I want kids to know is that I honor their relationship with themselves as primary. Because as we walk through the world, whatever comes, like I mentioned before, whatever is coming at us, whatever influences we have, how we respond to them is what's in our control. A lot of it isn't in our control because of the trauma from our own childhood and our own experiences, right? So we have triggers and we have things that we can't, but we can work on those things. But from a young age, if we help children learn to analyze their surroundings and their circumstances and their decisions based on the information they have and listening to their own intuition, it can make a big difference. So the other thing is the opportunity to practice. So when kids are growing up, they get the message everywhere, almost everywhere, that their intuition isn't to be relied on, that their instincts, like I said, aren't to be trusted. But we have the opportunity to give them that a different message. And I believe that even one person who consistently gives them a different message can make a difference in their lives. One of the things that I find really important is to ask kids their opinion on things. For example, my daughter, who is also my videographer, best friend, and travels with me wherever I go, recently I had a business opportunity come to me. A good friend of mine who I really trust was involved with this company, and they were doing work that's aligned with what I do. Everything about it seemed really good. And I was like, everything pointed towards that business opportunity. And so I was going towards it, but then I was like, something inside me wasn't feeling it. But there was so much goodness about it that I was like right on the edge of saying yes. And I went to my kid and I said to her, what do you think about this? And she said, well, how do you feel, Dad? What are you feeling? And she was asking me questions about it. Turned it around on me exactly, right? What are you feeling and what do you think? And what is your heart really telling you? Yes, there's lots of really good things that come from it. What is your heart really telling you? And I was like, thanks, kid. I really needed to hear that, you know? And, but I mean, she's 22 and I asked her that. But I've been asking her those questions since she was 2. I've been asking her, what do you think about this? What makes sense to you about this? And it doesn't matter what the situation was. Whether it was about me, about her mom did the same thing, whether it was about her and her life. We always gave her choice. We always asked her for her opinion. And the hard part about asking kids for their opinion is taking them seriously when they give it. Sometimes their answer is, let's go to the moon! And maybe we can't go to the moon, but it doesn't mean that we can't take that seriously, right? Because that came from their instinct, that came from their own sense. We can take it seriously and not say no. We can say, going to the moon would be so awesome. And if we went to the moon, it would solve the problem because this would happen, this would happen, and this would happen. I love that idea. As soon as we get a rocket ship, we can go. Until then, what else can we do? Right? I never said no. I never said it was wrong. I gave the information that we don't have a rocket ship, but I never made any implication that there was anything wrong with that idea. And we're continuing the brainstorming. We're continuing the exploration, the development of this idea. The next thing is to offer choices. Offer choices is slightly different than asking opinion, right? Offer choices is when we're going somewhere, when it's about food, when it's about what to play, what to wear, what to do, where to go, even how to decorate the house, what furniture to buy. Maybe not whether to buy it, where to sell the house and move to the city. Maybe they won't make that decision. But in all situations that we encounter, we can offer them choices, and we can ask for their opinion. When we offer them choices, instead of just offering the choice, we can guide them into how to think about the choice. So we can say, what are the pros and cons of the situation? We can say, who gets affected by the situation? We can say all these different kinds of things, and then we can say, this is what I always love to do. What does your body feel about this? And turning our kids back into their body wisdom. We were talking about body wisdom earlier. You know, turning kids back into their body wisdom. Turning kids back into their deep feeling sense. And they're ready for it. You know, my niece, who I have a really close relationship, she's 10, I think? 10, right? She's 10. But when she was 8, this happened a couple of years ago, we were at her place, at their place visiting. And at one point, we were playing and playing, and at one point she reached out to grab something, and I went to tickle her on her side, and then suddenly I stopped, and I thought, I don't know if she likes that. Let me ask. So I stopped myself, because consent is something that I find very important. And so she put her arm down, and she kind of noticed something happened. She said, "What's happening, Uncle Vivek?" And I said, "Listen, sweetie, I was about to tickle you on your side, but I suddenly thought, I don't know if you like that or not. And I was going to jab you, and then you would jump like this and scream, and sometimes that's fun, but not everybody likes that. What do you think? Would you like to play that way? Is that something that you would enjoy?" And you could see she hadn't really been asked that kind of thing very often in her life. She stopped and she went like this. She went, and she closed her eyes, and she really tuned in. And she spent probably 10, 15 seconds quiet tuning in. I was so surprised. I just went, I was almost like meditation, really. I just went into deep, deep meditation is what I did. And you're hypnotizing me with those eyes, little one. You are. Oh, goodness me, I'm getting distracted. All right. So she said, "Yes, Uncle Vivek, I want to do that. It sounds fun." I said, "Okay, but I just want to be clear. I'm going to jab you when you don't expect it, and then you're going to scream and laugh. Is that okay?" She said, "It's okay." So then, of course, she's like, after that, she's doing this, right? Because she wants to do it, but she knows I'm gonna tickle her, so she's ready for it. So I said, "Listen, kid, I'm a ninja. I'm not going to do it when you're ready. I'm going to wait until you're not ready and you're not expecting it, and then I'm going to get you." And then I said again, "Is that okay? How do you feel?" So again, I'm turning her back into her own feeling sense, right? but I'm also demonstrating. I'm demonstrating how we can interact with other people in a way that's respectful, but still engaged, right? So she thought about it again. She said, "Yes, I want to do it." So then 5 minutes goes by, and intentionally I did everything that would distract her from this conversation. As soon as she forgot, I got her, right? She lifted her arm and I got her. She screamed and laughed. And then we had this moment. I'll never forget this. We had this moment where we both recognized that the laughter had this agreement behind it, and it made it so much more pure and so much more connected and so much more beautiful. Because we had this agreement together. And then later on, I went to do it again, and I thought, maybe she didn't like it. I don't know. Just because she laughed once doesn't mean she wants it again. So I asked again. And she said, "One more time, I'll go with it." But she closed her eyes again and she tuned in again. Now imagine that experience of tuning in, and she was so grateful for the opportunity to tune in. Imagine that experience of tuning in happening all your life. And having that experience really validated by the adults in your life. Or even by, like I said, even by one adult in your life that completely, really values that really believes in you about that, and helps guide you continuously towards that. It's an incredible thing. It changes how we see ourselves. I actually don't even know how that would feel myself as an adult. I mean, I practice giving myself that kind of attention. I practice giving myself that kind of love and that kind of acceptance. Because I'm trying to reparent myself, right? Okay, the next thing is about if we want to teach people, if we want to teach and inspire our kids to follow their intuition and to honor it, it's important for us to do that for ourselves, right? To listen to our own intuition, to feel it, to honor it. And I call it, and to model it, right? To model, like I did, when I did asking her about this job opportunity that came to me, modeling intuition. But I don't just model it, it's what I call modeling out loud. And modeling out loud is where I do the thing, and then I talk about the thing. So for example, in coming to do this talk, deciding how to open the talk. Originally I was going to talk, I had this different opening. And then I thought about my friend Zara and that dramatic story and her crying on the phone with me. And I decided to open with the Zara story. But that decision was made intuitively. So then I might go home and say, "Hey, kiddo, when I gave my talk earlier, I wasn't sure how I was going to start. and I was really a little bit unsure, and so I got quiet and I tuned into my intuition, and I got the message, oh, start with the Zara story. And I would go home and I would tell, I mean, she's here, so she's only doing it. But like all her life, I would talk about how I used my intuition, how I interacted with it, and how I listened to it, or even just as important, the times I didn't listen to it. And so like we're having lunch, and I'll say, yesterday I was teaching this class, I didn't listen. I had intuition. I knew people were ready for a break, and I didn't listen to it. And by the end, nobody was listening to me. And I was like, I learned a really valuable lesson today. Tune in, man, tune in. And I talk that way all the time with her, so she sees me on a learning path. She sees me learning to tune in. So the next time it'll be like, oh, I guess I can tune in too. I guess it makes sense to do that. And then when she does, I reflect it back to her. So it's this constant experience. This is a whole being, co-learning relationship I talk about. Whole being, because it's the intuition, the emotions, the spirit, the body, everything is part of the learning process. And when we're doing that, and we involve them in their whole being in learning, that's why it's co-learning, it's we're learning together. You know, I have so much to learn about life. I have so much to learn, and recognizing that means I can't be an authority. We're all kind of guessing at life most of the time. That's why intuition is so important. It gives us at least something to base our guesses on, you know. And modeling out loud is one of the most beautiful things. But then all of a sudden, instead of being an authority figure telling someone else what to do, you are partners, learning partners, moving through life together. And you know different things. Like what I know, what I knew as an adult was how to eat with a fork, and how not to break your legs by falling off the highest rung of monkey bars. And those kind of things. What she knew was play and curiosity and learning and that intuitive sense. So this is the thing. When she was born, and I looked into those eyes. When she popped out, I was right there. And the first thing I did when I saw her, I love telling the story, is she popped out and I was right there. I moved all the doctors away. And I just went really close to her. I looked into her eyes and I just said, I love you, 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 I love you. For like 30 seconds straight, that was her first moment in the world. And then she immediately went on her mother's chest. So we had this beautiful introduction to each other. And I saw, all throughout her childhood, I saw that brilliant, pure awareness, the pure light, the divine intelligence that she is. I saw it, and I allowed, instead of trying to control it, I allowed it to awaken my light inside of me, my innocence inside of me, and my connection to my deeper self inside of me. And then allowing her to awaken me, I reflected that back to her, constantly reflecting her light back to her wisdom back to her. And it became this beautiful cycle of us lifting each other up throughout our lives and exploring things throughout our lives. And it became a true partnership. And so I want to encourage you to really think about how to shift shift your perception, your priorities of young people, of working with young people from how they're behaving to how they're feeling, and to the relationship that you have with them. And to especially the relationship they have with themselves. Because when this becomes a focus, it's amazing, because behavior largely comes from our feelings and from our instincts and from our relationships. And when we start to focus more on what's happening inside, behaviors shift automatically. When we try and shape behaviors, they take a much longer time to shift. And I worked with hundreds of kids over the years. I did a lot of volunteer work in her school, and I've helped hundreds of families over the past few years in the work that I do. And time again, when the focus shifts from behavior to communication, to connection and relationship, and especially tuning into something as subtle as intuition, everything changes. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. All right, thank you very much.